Hey guys, what's up? It's Deprimido. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here in FL Studio and I'm going to be showing you this R&B trap kind of beat that I made. Kind of goes along the styles of blackbear or maybe Bryson, but when I was making it I had blackbear in mind. Some of his older albums, like Dead Roses or Digital Drug Lord. Not the new stuff so much. I don't really like that stuff as much, but the new stuff is the old stuff is really good, and that's what I was thinking about when I made this. So I'm just going to run through the patterns, the effects, and stuff like that, and show you what I did, how it all works, and why it works. So I started off with Octave Deluxe, which is free if you bought Octave originally. It's the 10th preset in it, and it's just this key. Sounds really nice, kind of strange, but sounds nice, and this is what it sounds like. So that's that, and that's the only melody I used. I just put it on a bunch of different instruments. Next we got this, I believe it's a pad out of Expand. Maybe this one's the ARP. Yeah, so this one is an ARP from Expand. It's originally not an ARP, it's just a polysynth, but I turned the second sound off because it didn't sound good, and then I made it arpeggiate, and it sounds like this. Again, it's the same melody. So pretty cool. And then this one is a pad from Expand. It just sounds like this. Pretty simple. Then we have this synth bass. I got that one from Octave as well. Octave has a lot of good synth basses, so that's usually one of my go-tos for that. And then I made this, I put the same melody on a piano, but then I pressed Alt-Y to reverse it. Then I rendered it out and reversed the audio clip, and it sounds like this. And this is kind of the main point of the beat. So pretty cool. And yeah, that's kind of the main part of the beat, the most important part, and it sounds really cool in my opinion. So yeah. Then we have the drums, all pretty simple. We've just got this two-step hi-hat pattern with a couple of triplets and stuff. Pretty simple. And then I've got this snare right here. And then I also used a snap. And this kick. And that is all of the different patterns. So now I'm going to go into the effects on all of them. So starting off here with the that first melody I showed you, we've got isotope vinyl, and I just gave it quite a bit of dust and a little bit of wear, a little bit of warp, and then I turned the year back to 1970, and I also put this EQ on it just to cut some of the lows and the highs and make it a little bit more of a background sound. So without effects it sounds like this. And with effects it sounds like this. So just a lot more calm, I guess. Then with the ARP, there's no effects, and there's no effects on the pad. On the synth bass, we just have an EQ doing a high cut and a low cut. So without the EQ, it would sound like this. Let's see here. We actually gotta go into the main section and get one of these parts. It's not a big difference, but it just kind of thins out the sound a little bit. And then on this piano, we've got just an EQ cutting the highs and the lows a little bit. And then we've got a reverb. I put this on because if we listen to that reversed melody without the reverb, it sounds not super great because it just cuts off on each end of the bar, but with the reverb, it's a little bit more subtle. So without the effects, it sounds like this. And with. So it just sounds a lot better. It's a lot cleaner, and just, yeah, just better. Then on this hi-hat, we have a very small reverb. I turn the decay down, turn the size of the room down just a little bit, and turn the wet almost all the way down. And we also have this EQ, so it's just the very main frequencies. So you can hear the EQ probably makes the biggest difference in this sound, but you can hear without and with. So huge difference. Then on the snare, put a little bit of reverb. On R&B beats and stuff, I usually like to have kind of a looser sound for the snare or the clap or the snap or whatever we use. Decay is the same, size of the room is the same. I just turn the low cut up pretty high and turn the wet down a little bit. And then I did a pretty similar reverb on this one, turned the low cut up even a little bit higher than the last one and turned the wet down a little bit more, but otherwise everything's the same. And then on this kick, I put Fruity Blood Overdrive, and this makes it hit a little bit harder. So basically, I just turned the preamp up until it sounded good, and then I looked at what dB it was at originally without this, and then I just put this back on and turn the post gain down until it was at the same dB. That way it hits harder, but it's not peaking any higher, so it's not messing with the rest of your mix. So we can hear the difference with that. So you can hear, you can see that the dB is basically exactly the same. It's a very small difference, but it just hits a whole lot harder with that on. And then I didn't do any panning in this because even though there is a lot of layers, they're most of the time not playing at the same time, so I didn't really need to do a lot of panning. And then I just mixed it in mono, but we can take it out of mono now so you can hear what it sounds like just in stereo. Right, so now we'll go through the arrangement. The arrangement is probably one of my favorite parts of this. So starting off, we've got my tag right here, and then we've just started off with the piano, the reversed piano, and the synth bass. Hey, Deprimido, come rock this shit. And that goes on for 2 bars. Then coming in here, we start kind of the hook. So it's got, or I guess this is more of a verse or maybe a pre-chorus or something. But we've got the main melody right here. We've got the piano, obviously, and then we've got this pad, and again the synth bass. And then I also put in this snap. And that goes on for 2 bars. Then we have this build up right here, kind of a pre-chorus, and so I left the ARP in, I put the pad in, and the synth bass, and I took everything else out, including the piano and everything, and then we gave it, so that's how the first bar is. And then the second bar, I added in this main part right here from Octave, and then we put in this automation clip on the 7th band of the parametric EQ too. and so it just kind of cuts out the highs gradually, and then it builds up right again before the hook comes in. So you can hear that. So then coming in to the hook right here, pretty simple. We've got the kick and the snare, as well as the hi-hat, the piano, the arp, and the synth bass. Or I'm sorry, the pad, not the arp. That goes on for 2 bars. And then we have the second half, which just is exactly the same, but it adds in the arp up here. Then we come back to this verse right here. So we've got the the snap and the kick. And then we also have the synth bass and the pad. Then in the second half of the verse, we've got the snare, snap and the kick, the synth bass and the pad, and then we also have this main part up here. And then it goes into the same pre-chorus build up right here, but I added the snap in right here. It's barely audible because the EQ cuts out most of the snap by the time that we get to it, but it's there a little bit, just barely. And then that's pretty much the same hook as before. And then we just have this outro where I left the synth bass and the pad. And that goes on for 2 bars. Then there's a little bit of extra space right here at the end, just a little bit of breathing room so that it doesn't just loop immediately. And so, for example, if we were to put like this main melody in right here, we wouldn't end it like this because it wouldn't resolve. You can hear it needs to go back to that last note to resolve. But since we used the pad, it works because you can't really hear the individual notes so much, so it sounds right. It doesn't entirely resolve, but it doesn't make it super obvious that it doesn't resolve, so it still sounds good, and it just leaves you wanting a little bit more, but it doesn't sound bad. So that's how I made the beat. That's how you'd make a beat for Blackbear or Bryson or someone like that. And yeah, I'm really happy with this beat. It's one of my favorite beats that I've made in a long time. So let me know what you guys thought, and please leave a like and a comment and subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video.